So going back to this user.java, which is our user bean, we will add yet another private variable. It would be again a string variable, and this string variable name would be message. All right, and we would require one getter for this property. So we will navigate to source, generate getters and setters, and for message we simply need get message method. So we will click on OK. Get message method is generated for us, and in here let us initialize this message. All right, so we will type in message equals a very simple message. The username contains space. Likewise, if the length of the password is less than 6, then we will initialize message as password length less than 6. And all right, so here is a typo. Let me save this message. Now why this is showing me this error? All right, there is a typo, and if you guys encounter with such kind of scenario, simply refactor this particular variable, and the way to do it is by highlighting the variable name, right click and select refactor option and select rename, and now correct the variable name and hit enter, and everything would be done. All right, so now we have a message variable, and we can now print the message in the form. So we will print it like this: JSP colon get property, and the name of the property is message, and the name of the bean is user. And let me execute the form now. So all right, here is yet another issue. The issue is this name of the getter. Let me fix this as well. Now let me execute the form.jsp once again. Now this looks better. Now why there is a null value? We need to initialize this form variable to an empty string. Let me refresh this page. It should work. No, it doesn't work that way. Let me restart the server. So I have restarted the Eclipse in fact, and I have made a slight modification in the user bean. I have added these tags in order to make the message bold. So let me execute the form now, and now everything should work good, and message is initialized with an empty string. So everything is perfectly done, and it is taking some time. Here we go. So in here, enter the username, which is the default text. I will enter the username perfectly, but I will add a password which is less than 6 digit, and click on login. So it will give me a message, password length less than 6. And now let me add a username which is invalid because it contains a space in between, and password would be a valid password, and click on login. Then it will give us a message, the username contains space. And if I do this, for example, I type in steady space easy, and password contains only 2 digits, and click on login, then it will give me only one message, because as soon as we set the message as the username contains a space, we return false. So the validate method will return the false, means it will validate the first field first, and if the first field is good enough, then only it will check the second field, which is again a very good thing. So now the validation is working perfectly, and everything looks good. In fact, let me execute the program once again. So now if I again run the form.jsp, it will keep on showing me this error message. Why? Because we haven't resetted the value of message, right? So now let me do one more thing. in submit.jsp, if everything looks good and the validate method returns true, then we will reset the message. So I will type in else. In else part, we will set the value of message. In fact, for doing so, we would require the set message getter. So let me right click, navigate to source, generate setters and getters, and we want set message as well. So in this particular submit.jsp, we will do this. We will type in user dot set message, and we will set the message to an empty string. We will set the message to nothing, and then it will reset the message. So now if I execute the form, and so here is the form, and we indent the mechanism as that whenever we submit the form, the message should reset, and if the form doesn't submit, then the previous entries of username and password should also retain. That we will check in a minute. So in here, for example, in here I type in Chand S, which is a perfectly alright username, and password is less than 6 digit, and click on login. Then it will show us password length less than 6, which is perfectly alright. Even if I refresh the page, it should show me this particular message. There is no issue with it. But now if I type in Chand S again, and the password is 1 2 3 4 5 6 and 7, and I click on login, then the form got submitted perfectly. And if I navigate back to this particular form and refresh the page, then it doesn't show me the message again, which is perfect. Now the only thing which is left is that if the form doesn't set properly, then we would like to retain the value which was entered by the user. And the way to do it is pretty simple. We will make use of this value attribute, and inside this value attribute we will make use of single quotes this time, and inside we will type in JSP colon get property, and the name of the property would be username. The name of the bean is user, so we will add in user in here. And finally we would be closing this input tag. So this looks perfect. We will do the same. Let me execute this program. The statement is looking a little weird to me. Things are perfect. Let me navigate in here. Let me copy this particular line, in fact partial line, and paste it in here. And in here, the name of the property is password, and the name of the bean is name again. So everything looks perfect. And what this particular line will do, it will try to retain the value which is set in the bean. Now if I execute this particular form by restarting the server, then you will encounter with yet another issue. So we are restarting the Tomcat. It is taking some time as usual. So now if I execute form.jsp, so now this is the issue. The username and password would be read as null for the very first time. Why? Because we are not initializing username and password, and the best way is to initialize them. And we will initialize it with a very simple message, enter username, and for password we will initialize it with nothing. So now if again we need to restart the server, and we need to execute the form. Let me pause this video for a minute, and now let us execute the form.jsp, and it should give us a proper result. The default value should be enter username, which is the value we have initialized, and password should be nothing. Here we go. So it shows enter username, password is nothing. If I enter the username as Chand S and password as a valid password, in fact, and click on login, then it's logged in properly. Let me refresh the page. So it retains the username and password, which is again good. Now I will resubmit the form by adding a space in between Chand and space, and click on login. So it will validate perfectly. If I again submit the username password with valid username but invalid password and click on login, then it will give us password length less than 6. If I enter perfect username and password and click on login, then form again logs in perfectly. If I navigate back and refresh the page, it retains username and password, which is again good. Definitely we can reset these values in submit.jsp in a similar fashion with the ease. But this current mechanism is the mechanism we were intending to build and which is perfect. So this is how we can implement a very basic validation and with using beans, which is perfect, and the application is working perfectly. We can again do one more thing. We can submit the form to itself. For example, we can submit this particular form to not submit.jsp but to the form.jsp, and if we do so, then we will not require this response.send redirect statement, but the code would be little bit more complicated because we need to handle everything in the same page. Well, submitting the form to itself is not our agenda today, and I suppose the explanation was easy. It was a little difficult concept and the implementation was a little lengthy, and I suppose I have made things clear and everything is easily explained. Thank you for listening and keep coding. Have a nice day, guys.